Going out to watch this movie with my little sister, I had just watched Inside Out 1 and didn't know what to expect from this movie, especially the sequel because I hadn't seen any trailers. I like to pride myself on that, by the way. Hashtag stop trailer spoilers. But I was pleasantly surprised at the decision to make anxiety the primary antagonist for the sequel. As Riley begins puberty, she is entangled in a web of impression, peer pressure, and self-identity. As she grows, her evolved emotions enter her control room that were just her basic emotions from the first film. These emotions now have to find ways to work together, if at all. With this conflict, we see the inner workings of a growing child. I feel bad for not analyzing Inside Out 1 when it first came out, nor even paying it any mind until recently. But, as your favorite psych guy on YouTube, here is our first analysis apart from our usual anime topics. Anxiety is simply a survival instinct, being the voice in our head of warning if something should be done or avoided. The nervousness to hunt alone in 10,000 BC or not. This decision can be the difference between getting eaten by a saber-toothed tiger or not. It could be the decision to hunt with a group and come home with food. In nothing besides loincloth and wielding your spear, you make the conscious decision that it's best to hunt in packs and avoid threats around you. As a result, you come home without any casualties and with food. If not for anxiety, you would fail to see these precautious negative outcomes of these decisions that we make every day. As our species evolves, so do our aspects that are worth keeping. Obviously, anxiety has stuck around after all these years. The American Psychological Association terms anxiety as an emotion characterized by feelings of tension, worried thoughts, and physical changes. Why would such a bothersome trait be contained within us after all these years, you may ask? Simply, it has its value in today's world, where it helped humans navigate the plagues from hundreds of years ago to the proactive decisions to help alleviate as many possible deaths from our recent pandemic. Politics aside, anxiety has always been the voice against the worst possible outcome. Along with our larger use for anxiety, it is unfortunately utilized in minor daily tasks where our lives are not in danger. The fact is, our worries that are no longer based on predators that can attack us in the night, or if we don't hunt today, we don't eat, as we are so accustomed to using this emotion for nearly everything. We end up using it for the small things, such as school tests, talking to people, the list goes on, where the term worst possible outcome can be overlapped between death and receiving an F on a test. I'd like to preface this now before I get into it, but I am simply making this commentary for you to think of what we talk about here. I am not, nor will I ever, accuse anyone of anything. These videos are informational and conversation starting, nothing more. If I offend you in this video, use it as a sign to research more for your own sake, instead of yelling at a random guy on the internet. Thank you. With this constant use of anxiety, our brain becomes accustomed to the feeling, the anxiety before this decision or that, and what may come from certain decisions made. For Riley, we see her imagination land, foreseeing all possible outcomes. Imagination Land is just simply a TV screen, well, multiple TV screens, of what could and maybe will happen. In order to avoid these undesired alternatives, her new emotion, anxiety, enters her mind to make decisions based on these possible futures. After anxiety makes these decisions, such as forgetting core memories, Riley begins to betray her friends, impresses the wrong people, and so much more that everyone can relate to when comparing our 12-year-old selves. An article by Dean Mobbs et al. Defines anxiety's purpose as a facilitation of behaviors to reduce detection from the quote-unquote predator. Reading this through the viewpoint of anxiety being a survival instinct from long ago, a predator is the clear saber-toothed tiger that can chase us if given the chance. In today's world, the predatory test that can make or break our grade has essentially the same effect. To reduce our detection from the predator, we begin to mold our defense mechanisms. Without getting too in-depth, these defense mechanisms that are reinforced in our lives become a part of our identity. Another article by Cure Op in Psychiatry in 2016 stated that if we develop a pathological use for anxiety, it may lead to structural degradation and impaired functioning in the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, two areas of the brain responsible for memory/emotion and regulation, respectively. For example, being afraid of social interaction and finding out that using headphones keeps people from talking to you. You'll grow up to be that adult with headphones in all the time. Or another example, as a child having outlashes when your parents try to discuss what you did wrong and teach accountability, the same childlike reaction of throwing temper tantrums in your younger years. Instead of being an accountable adult for your own actions, you've become accustomed to the same behaviors you molded as a youth. These examples continue, and maybe you can pause this video and realize some mechanisms that you've created in your own life. Regardless, anxiety is the catalyst to these defense mechanisms that stir other other problems, a domino effect if you will. Since we don't have saber-toothed tigers walking around in today's world, we replace those giant beasts with whatever is an equivalent in our own lives. I would like to circle back to a term used earlier in the video, worst possible outcome. The key word in this term is the possible part, the unknown future. Yes, we can expect and deduce outcomes based on prior experience or other people's advice, but we can never 100% tell the future with certainty. If any of us could, we would win the lottery. Therefore lies the problem with allowing anxiety to take control, or in Riley's case, run the control room. We have anxiety in our arsenal along with multiple emotions because it has its place, but is not the leader of our emotions. From a formulaic standpoint, Inside Out 2 is about joy versus anxiety. Joy as a character is overjoyous, optimistic, and delusional. This character flaw resulting in Joy being overly optimistic and not realistic. It's hard to even type this out for the video's sake because remember, I'm talking about characters. When I say Joy is overjoyous but delusional, it is quite the epitome of what joy is, with a lowercase. To be overjoyous is impossible. The conflict of joy versus anxiety is a constant battle within ourselves for how to be happy, and the proper steps to do so. In Inside Out 2, I want to focus on this conflict from the plot point of Joy's breakdown because it shows that these emotions do so much, yet should never carry the load within ourselves. If Riley allowed Joy to run her life, she would be naive or unfit to deal with the first time disaster strikes in her life. Oh wait, Inside Out 1. In the constant back and forth between the conflicting beliefs from anxiety and joy, I'd like to interject the term hedonic treadmill. The hedonic treadmill is a metaphor for the constant ups and downs in our life referring to our hedonic adaptation. Hedonic adaptation is the notion that after positive or negative effects and a responsive increase in positive or negative feelings, people eventually return to a stable baseline level. In storytelling, there is a rule that the protagonist wins because the protagonist is willing to grow where the antagonist is not. Inserting this rule into Inside Out 2, Joy must go on this mission through Riley's mind to grow beyond anxiety. At first, before her breakdown, or what we call revelation according to the hero's journey, Joy looks for ways to get Riley to remember who she is and retrieve her core memories. Along the way, fear, emotionally similar to anxiety I might add, but not the exact same, constantly reminds Joy of the lack of caution she has when acting out her plans. When Joy thinks of a plan to get back to headquarters, she forgets that someone has to call them up from the headquarters in the first place. Anxiety would have thought about that, Fear says, reminding Joy. Good writing writes itself, and boy oh boy, does this movie have tons of great writing. Subsequently, Joy must change her plan and adapt once more to her negligent thinking for the future of her plans. This hints that the thing she is missing is thinking ahead, something anxiety is great at. With the plot being based around the retrieval of Riley's core memories, we see how both sides, anxiety and Joy, deal with these. Where Joy wants to retrieve them to restore for Riley to remember who she is, expecting her to remember why she is the way she is and doing the right thing, anxiety aims to throw them away. Anxiety's thinking is that if we remove our core memories, it can help make the decisions for our future easier. And now the issue here is, I want you to think for yourself for a second, is that the removal of our core memories would be to remove our confidence in ourselves, self-identity, and overall contentment in ourselves. With this core removed, we begin to act out of character, impressing those that we don't need to impress, pushing away our old friends that helped us mold us into who we are, and so many more dumb mistakes we make as teenagers. In Riley's case, she tries to impress the new hockey girls and pushes her original friends away. To anxiety's defense, her original friends plan to go to a different school, creating more possible outcomes if Riley doesn't impress her new potential teammates. This plot point shows us that life will throw random events at us, and it's up to us to deal with them how we see fit. For anxiety, she goes into overdrive in Riley's mind to continuously attempt to impress Val and the new potential teammates. Pushing out Riley's core memories would make it easier to make these decisions based on her future to impress her new friends, choose them over her old ones, and create a better future for herself. With both ideologies clashing, Joy and anxiety battle it out throughout the film. Anxiety's team of complex emotions and Joy's basic emotions team, they find it hard to work in harmony at first. Due to them being unknown to each other initially, they find out that they conflict with each other more than they are similar. As Riley grows older, basic emotions such as joy and sadness simply don't compute as easily anymore. Riley has even more external influences within herself that require more complex emotions to process. The culmination of the plot, the climactic moment of Riley's anxiety attack, is due to the cathartic moment of her emotions all coming together, quite literally happening side by side the situation inside her mind headquarters. As Riley has her anxiety attack, her emotions in her control center work together to calm down anxiety, both figuratively and literally. After calming anxiety down, Joy replenishes Riley's core memories, triggering her cathartic release of tears. The representation of Joy replenishing Riley and calming anxiety down shows the cohesion of our emotions at work. Where anxiety tries to prevent a possible future, Joy is the optimistic look towards the future. Together, they can cover even more possibilities, if we'd listen to all of our emotions. To continue the protagonist versus the antagonist, Joy learned that we can work with anxiety instead of trying to keep our complex emotions down. Anxiety initially tries to turn away from things we don't understand, but when she sees what Joy learned, she follows suit. Additionally, I'd like to point out anxiety's decompression area. This symbolizes that we need to find a place or behavior that safely allows us to decompress in times of stress and anxiety. This can be working out, reading a book, or simply meditating. Regardless, we all need to find ways to help ourselves. To self-advocate is the first step in becoming independent and not allowing external predators to harm us. Looking at the film's message from a broader perspective, let's again look at anxiety in its evolved state. We may not have saber-toothed tigers running around in 2024, but we have deadlines, expectations, and influences to deal with from both the internet and in person. With the internet being so big, the quote-unquote predator that it imposes, that we fear to be seen, is pretty much impossible to stay hidden from. For myself, I have different predators in the form of expectations and deadlines as an older brother in the back half of my master's program. Will I pass or fail? Will I be a good big brother or not? Compare this to a teenager that has an evolving body and is trying to make friends in her next phase of school. Think of your own individual situation, and you'll identify all the predators that you try to avoid or will have to face eventually. But once we identify these obstacles and use a little bit of anxiety to see the negative possible outcomes, we can use optimism, focus, and preparedness to not let those failures happen. At the end of the day, it is not dutiful to neglect or turn away from our daily predators. Doing this is a disservice to our own safety and well-being. What we must do is listen to ourselves, take care of ourselves, and use all the tools we are equipped with to navigate this difficult game we call life. In the meantime, surround yourself with nice people and continue to be a source of positivity for yourself and those around you. So the next moment your anxiety is pressing the buttons in your control room, listen to what it has to say. From there, you are aware of a possibility, one of the possibilities, but then look to your other emotions for their input as well. Once you have this information downloaded, live life in the present and not the future, because looking ahead will make you overlook what's in front of you. Sincerely, Will.